on this. Okay. Great.
So Sarah, I had told Grace, because we were like kind of discussing last time, that she was confused on like when to start. So I said, when you see the live button start pop up, wait 5 seconds and then start, because that gives me time to hit go live on LinkedIn as well and to get out.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Wait, where is the live gonna be? The live
It's gonna be next to the where you see recording.
Okay. Okay.
Grace, so
Yeah.
I can use like 2 up to 4 minutes, right, for each question, so we can be on time. Like,
Yeah. I would say no more than 4 minutes.
all right.
Just to make sure, because I'm sure that there will be some questions in the chat. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't see the rain coming, right? It's rainy, very heavy right now.
Oh no.
No, your background looks very nice. As
Yeah,
do
it
you.
does.
Great. I have to carefully select this place and tell them, please, like, it's actually like you laugh, like, I don't know if you're recording. We're not live, right, Grace?
No, not live.
Not yet.
Okay, let me show you around.
I'm gonna hit live. Oh wow.
Okay, so
Oh,
okay,
wow.
I'll bring it back.
That's really nice.
Sarah, it's not letting me do the live thing on LinkedIn again. Oh, now it is. Okay. You're good.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Sarah, it's not letting me do the live thing on LinkedIn again. Oh, now it is.
You're good? All righty. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for
letting me do the live.
Julia, are you there? Julia. All right, I think we're good. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Grace Peters, and I work at Smile Train to develop and expand our comprehensive Cleft care programs, which includes our psychosocial care programs and is why we are here today. For those who joined our LinkedIn Live session last week, welcome back to our Mental Health Awareness Month LinkedIn Live series. And for those who are new and joining us today, hello and welcome to our Mental Health Awareness LinkedIn Live series. This session we are about to have here today is part of a 3-part series for Mental Health Awareness Month, highlighting the timeline of psychosocial care for Cleft patients and families from the prenatal period to adulthood. Today, we will specifically be discussing the importance of psychosocial care from middle school age patients to preteens. Our next session Wednesday and our final session of this LinkedIn Live series is where we will discuss the importance of psychosocial care for teens and adults. So stay tuned for that. Today, I am joined here by Ifram, who is tuning in from Ethiopia, and who I will pass it over to him in just a sec to introduce himself. But first, I wanted to share with you why we're discussing psychosocial care. So at Smile Train, we know that psychosocial care is as important as every other type of cleft treatment. And it's so important that we continue to recognize the role of psychosocial care within cleft treatment and mental health conversations, and the importance of debunking stigma around and related to mental health. I'm also really proud that we are here having this conversation and highlighting psychosocial care, because unlike other areas of cleft care, psychosocial plays a role in the entire timeline of care. I was personally impacted by cleft and understand the importance of this type of care and the impact it has on patients and families' quality of life and ability to thrive. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ifram. Ifram is a Smile Train partner and mental health professional with over 10 years of experience. Ifram, over to you to share a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, Grace, for inviting me for this very important session today. My name is Ifram, just like Grace introduced me in the beginning. I am from East Africa, Ethiopia, where I lead one of Smile Train's partner program called the Moving Smile. I am executive director for that program, and also my background is in mental health and psychosocial services. I've been working with the Smile Train program for the last year and 9 months, and very happy to be here to share my experience working with the children and also their families. Thank you.
Thanks, Ifram. And now we will get into the Q&A section of this LinkedIn Live. And for those who are tuned in on LinkedIn, please do put any questions that you have throughout this 30-minute session into the chat, and we will have time at the end to get to them. All right, so as I mentioned, this session is specifically talking about psychosocial care from the middle school age patients to preteens. So Ifram, my first question for you is, why is psychosocial counseling important for at this stage of care, this stage of life for patients impacted by cleft?
Okay, thanks, Grace. So as we are celebrating May, the month May for World Mental Health Awareness Month and campaign, it's very important to talk about mental health and psychosocial services pretty much for everyone. But now today we're talking about for children and other adults who are born with cleft lip and palate. So why it's important, today we'll be talking about, I want to separate two groups, children and preteens or pre-teenager age category. For the children, I would say between the age of 3 and 9. And also for preteen children who are between the age of 9 and 11 or 12. So why it's important? Because the first thing is the change they see when they were born and the uniqueness of their presentation, their facial presentation is one factor that we need to address mental health, so in psychosocial services. That's very important for them because they will be seen as different, as unique, and that needs a kind of explanation, awareness, and all this supporting. And the other one is as the children gets into the school age, which is around 7 years old, that's where the prime socialization age, where children spend less time with their families and spend more time with their new friends in the school, at the school, as in grade 1. So by that time, they need to make friendship, socialization, looking for their own identity. So in that part also, there is a huge adjustment that they need to make because of their speech issues. It could be because of their small cleft on their face or because of other things. So that's also another reason why they need it. Maybe finally, I would say anxiety. I mean, social anxiety could be one factor because not everyone knows about this case. Not everyone understands or will empathize about this case. So that also brings a lot of pressure on these children and pre-teenager children. So I would say anxiety, self-image, also adjustments to the new world where we join grade 1. So all these things will bring us to why we need a psychosocial care for these children.
Something that I actually learned from you, Ifram, is that a lot of kids at that stage, at like 7 years old, 8 years old, even 9, they don't really understand emotions at that point, or why they're feeling a certain way. So I think it's like you said, it's important to validate their feelings and let them know how they're feeling is okay too, while they're experiencing anxiety or frustration. So my next question for you is, what challenges do children and preteens with Clefts face related to psychosocial care?
Yeah, so the way I see psychosocial care, we don't always be targeting negative emotions. Also, like you said, positive emotions like joy, happiness, and also on the other side where you have sadness and loneliness and also isolation. So both extremes are part of a psychosocial life. So still, we would separate into 2 groups: children between the age of 2 or 3 and 9, where they have a lot of new adjustment in their families. They might go in with Cleft or college, and maybe their siblings doesn't have that, or maybe the whole neighborhood, for example, in my country, maybe the whole neighborhood never heard about this issue. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Maybe a midwifery or a nurse never heard of this issue because it's a big country where people live in a very distressing manner, in a very distressing geographical manner. So that's a big thing because there will be a stigma. We've seen that while working with hospitals and hospitals. There's a stigma, and the stigma comes from a very close person, a very close caregiver, not the people who are living far. So that's one challenge they face. Also always talking about play, because these children have life beyond play. They have education, they have sports, they have family, they have hobbies. So everyone is targeting, maybe most people targeting on the play. That also gives them an attention, which is not favorable to them. So we've seen also a positive stigma where we provide these children a lot of attention to help them, but also at the same time, we're stigmatizing them in a different way. So stigma is one big thing. I would say bullying, especially, like I said, in the first preschool age, like the school age, 7 years old, 6 years old, bullying is the biggest thing. Is where you say, you shake your hand and my name is a friend, then the next thing comes is like, what we compete and give you a bully name. So that's also very, very common for in this socialization age. I would say in the preteens, like between the age of 9 and 12, where a child is now a 3rd grader or 4th grader, and they've accepted it, and they know already maybe some ways to manage this bullying. But still, now the question comes into the inner self, like understanding, like what's my self-image, my self-perception, how do I accept myself, like how do I see myself? So those are the next questions they will have, the next psychosocial challenge they will have. This doesn't always mean that the surgery, I know the surgery has a big impact on these psychosocial issues, but still with or without surgery in our country, we observe that, especially in the preteen age, self-image has been compromised, like how I see myself, self-perception, and also self-esteem. So because of the messaging, the voice outside, and also the way we accept ourselves from inside. So this has been very common in our work, especially here in Ethiopia.
I like how you highlighted, even with the surgery, psychosocial care is so important, because even with the repaired cleft, it still does affect self-image and self-esteem for younger patients and even older patients too. And going back to also what you said about stigma, I think throughout this entire timeline of a patient's life, from the prenatal period, which we touched on last week, through adulthood, I think stigma, especially from the broader community, is something that is always kind of something that we need to tackle and help to eradicate. So my next question for you, Ephraim, is how do you work with children and preteens with clefts and their families to help them understand and cope with some of these challenges that you just mentioned?
Well, in the mental health space, the first thing is to understand the challenge before any intervention. So, just like you asked, what's the challenge? We really did a lot of assessment, a lot of interview, a lot of going to a secondary data where monitoring partners have been doing a lot of intervention before. So that is the basic thing, trying to understand the basic, what's the need. So a lot of assessments, it could be rapid assessment or also some of the standardized assessments in mental health. So based on that, we've designed our intervention. So I would love to make another two group, children and preteen versus families or their caregivers. So one thing which most people might not see is like the responsibility of the caregivers, the pressure they have, and also the pressure increases with the lack of awareness. So the less awareness we have about Cleft and all these cases as a parent or as a caregiver, and the more pressure we create on ourselves. We don't know where to go, we don't know how to help our children, we don't know how to communicate with them, and we don't know how to teach them, all these things. So it's very important to divide this. So the first thing is children and preteen. So what we did is like after the assessment is like what language or what localization do you need in this intervention? So every community is different, and that every education is different, every corner is different. So for the children and the preteens, the first thing we did was like providing them a safe space. I'm not saying the hospital is not a safe space. The hospital is a safe space for them to get the surgery and all the comprehensive care services. But it's still the psychosocial is the hidden or not the visible health. So to measure it, process it, to deliver it is not easy out there unless we create that safe space for the children to express. Talk about it. So that's the first thing we focused, providing a safe space. Safe space could be a space where they can see their parents or caregiver from afar, but still they can socialize with other children with Cleft or family. So that was the first thing we did. The second thing is like, how can we make it a child-friendly space? It has to be a child-friendly space. This space is not for us, for adults, it should be for them. So we needed a lot of empathy, understanding, and also, like I said, validating their emotion in these child-friendly spaces, bringing toys, bringing colors, bringing art-based activities, and all these things. Then when we go to the parents or the caregivers, how we're supporting them is like providing a supportive space. So they needed the support. They've been struggling by themselves alone for a very long time. So providing them a supportive space, a support group has been very much our tool for parents and caregivers. And finally, also giving them access. So most of them, they come from very rural areas or remote areas, I would say, from the capital, from where a hospital is found, is built in. So we try to give them access through different ways, through calls, reporting, through different ways. So these are the interventions we're practicing right now.
Wonderful. And I think also access is a challenge for a lot of patients. So the fact that, access to care is a challenge, and being able to bring this type of care and talk about it with families and children who are first, starting to understand what they look like and starting to, make, look at themselves in the mirror and see themselves compared to other people. And I think, as humans, we do that all the time, but it's a little bit different for this population because of the experience that they have with their cleft. So Ephraim, my next question is, what resources do you provide families, again, at this stage, the preteen to middle school age patients, to help them manage their medical and emotional aspects of having a preteen with cleft?
Yeah. So with the children treating age children, so like I said, a child-friendly service, a child-friendly space, and we talked about it. And one of our assets was arts and movements, where expression can be easier. A lot of tools are out there to do child therapy, but also for some cases where children are not really comfortable to talk about it, or even to recognize their own emotion, to accept their own emotion and how they felt. For some of the children, they're not allowed to be sad. They're not allowed to be sad about what happened. So that was a challenge. So we needed a creative way of addressing this, understanding them. So art-based activities or therapy has been very much a big tool in our project, the Moving Smart. So we use mainly visual and movement-based art activities for the children to express. The first thing is expression, or bringing that emotion to the space. After that, also, we use, for example, in art-based activities, we've been using shadow art and circles or social circles for the children to express. And also, while producing all these art materials, they've been finding less anxiety. We've been observing less anxiety in the assessments because they're still in the hospital setting. They know they're going to have a checkup with the doctor or going to a surgery in a few minutes, but it's been a very good distraction from the next activity. And also they can focus on coloring their favorite cartoon figure or their pets with a pre and post surgery image. That has been one tool. The other thing is we also give them some materials to read or to take it away to home. And also for the pre-adults, the pre-adolescents or pre-teens, we're organizing one of very important tools in Sub-Saharan Africa, where they use a group session. You put one activity, one tool as a peer object. That peer object will be synthesized or presented as some animal. It can be a lion or a dog or anything, where the child thinks it's something that's beautiful. Then based on that, we design facing that lion or facing that hyena or facing that snake. So how you face it has a lot of procedures. So for the children to process their emotion, to stabilize their emotion and get ready for the surgery. Quickly coming to the families and caregivers, where we've designed, we compiled resources and we call the service Cleft Community Circle. So this is a circle where parents, mostly mothers, which we're really proud of, and also fathers also join or caregivers join in this space and they talk about it. Oh, where did you get this service? I get it from here and I get it from there. So it's a place where they share compassion of what they've been through. And also we provide how you can help your child, especially bullying is very popular, very common thing. So how do you open this discussion with your child? How do you provide your child, like a non-violent way of communicating when there's a bullying on their plate or something? And the recent thing we started was accessibility issue, where we started tele-based services, because most of our patients, they come to the hospital, they get the service and they go back home, which is probably more than 100 mile or something. So through that call center, where it's a hotline, it's a free hotline service, but people can call in, and also we call them and we follow up with them, like, how are you doing? How are things at home? What kind of stabilization do you need? And things like that. So we've been providing all this in the psychosocial care.
And following up, I mean, that is, I think, one of the key aspects of psychosocial care and good psychosocial care is being able to follow up and check in with the patient and their families and continue to include them in whatever conversations they need to have, whether that's with the Cleft team or with other community members. And the Cleft community circle that you mentioned for caregivers too, I think that is something that we've heard from all around the world. There's some sort of either WhatsApp group or in-person, Cleft circle for caregivers and parents, mothers going through this, to again start these conversations and to act as a support network too, which I think is really important, especially because oftentimes, you know, there might be a family who had never heard of Cleft, and so this might be the first time that they're coming and seeing other families impacted by Cleft and other patients impacted by Cleft, and they know that they're not alone. So I think that that's really wonderful that you guys are able to do that on top of everything else that you guys are doing with the art therapy and all of that. So my last question for you is, what are some success stories you can share about children and preteens with Clefts and their families that you have worked with?
Well, this is like one of the energy that we get every day, like especially in the call center area, in the free call center area, where we get a lot of calls. Just like with a single call, you would really change someone's like attitude or awareness, or even a life, like their decision, what to do about their family. So one of our recent patients, which we refer to a hospital, and we go there to do the psychosocial service, was only 18 years old, 18, and she had a baby already, and she had a domestic abuse, then had a rape case. After the rape, she had the baby, and the baby had a cleft. And imagine all these things happened between the age of 16 and 18 years old. So, and her parents were not accepting her. It was a big challenge for her. And imagine that ages where you go to college or you go to the next stream in your life. So all these things came together to her life, and she was giving up, and she heard about this call center. We promoted on the radio and TV in different ways to reach, you know, the remote areas. And she heard about it, and she called, and she came to Addis. We brought her to Addis here, and she brought her kids. She came with her mom, so it's her mom, herself, and the kid, and they had the surgery. And our focus was on the child, the seed. But at the same time, we always also interview the parents, like the caregiver, and we thought it's her, the grandmother was really in charge, that it's her, you know. And this is like one of the few moments that the grandmother, the mother, and the child were together. So we had the chance to interview her. You know, it took us a lot of time for her to be able to open up about what happened. We didn't know about the rape case. Then she opened up. Then we really become conscious about it, creating a safe space for her, you know, to stabilize and process all these things. And she had to go back home outside of Addis, and she continued the teletherapy. And now, yeah, the child has already got the successful comprehensive care, but also now the focus is also on her. We're giving her a teletherapy where she's talking about, you know, how to move on, how to continue her education, how to integrate back to the community. So you can see like the whole thing coming together in this space. So that makes us, you know, that gives us a lot of energy. Yeah, by just listening. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I think from this story, and also the short story, the success story that we heard from Camila last week, there are you know, little moments that really do make an impact, that the psychosocial care that you, others who are in this space that are working on really changing, you know, the life of these patients and families. Alrighty, so now we have a few questions from our LinkedIn Live audience. Okay, a question that we have, I love this question. What do you think is the greatest barrier to expanding availability of psychosocial care?
I would say many things, but I would say like acceptance would be the greatest barrier, I would say, not only from the patient side, but also from the professional side of, do we need to spare time, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just to listen before rushing to the surgery or the ortho care or other cares? Of course, they all are important. That's why it's a comprehensive care. You have all 5 stages. So accepting that, validating that, and really the surgery can change someone's life, but also the hidden pain, if it already grow like into a very concrete thing, the surgery would contribute, I would say, to the healing of the psychosocial need. But sometimes it becomes it's a need by itself. It stands alone. So accepting that cleft care is everything. When everything comes together, then we can really provide a holistic service, and we can really be successful in this service. So I would say acceptance is accepting of like, do I need to go to this service is a big barrier.
Right, and I think that's not only with psychosocial care, but cleft care in general. I think oftentimes we think of cleft and we think of the surgery, but it is so much more than just the surgery. And I think psychosocial care is special because it really is important from the prenatal stages, being there for the parents, counseling them, preparing them to have a baby through the childhood and adulthood of the patient. And that starts, like you said, with acceptance, integration, holistic care, which oftentimes isn't always the case. Our next question we have here is, while we know there is stigma surrounding clefts, is there also a stigma around receiving psychosocial support in Ethiopia like we have in the US?
Definitely. All over places I've been, countries I've been, after that accepting it, then you go to a therapy or a service, a community-based service as seen. There's a big challenge, but I've seen the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen a lot of change. People start to talk about it on the media. They started like saying it, not labeling, but also saying it. Especially, I think I would say COVID changed a lot of things. People like become open about mental health and psychosocial services, but there is a long way to go still. From all the way to the policymaker to service provider to the clients. There's a lot to do, but there is also a lot of new beginnings, new hopes, especially in the community-based psychosocial services. There's a lot of openness to go to a group session than individual session. That has been like, a very good change. But on the referral service, on a very specialized mental health services or psychosocial services, we still have to do a lot of health promotion. I would say that is as well.
Great, and we have a few more questions, but we are right at 9. So I think we're going to maybe go over to the LinkedIn Live and answer some of these questions in the chat rather than here on the live so that we can wrap up. Is that all right?
That's all right, I understand. Thank you very much, Grace. Thank you, Smile Train. And also please join our May mental health campaign on the Moving Smile page. So if you do hashtag the Moving Smile, you would find all the 16 days mental health campaign that we're doing on Clefts. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ephraim. And we will also put that in the LinkedIn Live chat as well, a link to your Moving Smile campaign for Mental Health Awareness Month. But thank you so much, Ephraim, for joining and for being here with us and from teaching us and from me learning. I always learn so much from you about the importance of psychosocial care, the challenges and limitations, but also the solutions and successes that you have had, which are very similar to other successes around the world. So it's really wonderful to hear from you. You are making a huge difference for your patients around the world, and thank you so much. For those who are listening, please join us next week for our final LinkedIn Live session for this 3-part series. And thank you so much for joining us.